Punjabi Hari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Giribara Dhari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Giribara Dhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jamuna Tiravana Chari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Giribara Dhari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Giribara Dhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Tiravana Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Giribara Dhari 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 Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Giribara Dhari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Giribara Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Yashodanandana Brajajana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Okay, Haribo, Hare Krishna. So I'd like to welcome people to the Dublin Temple Sunday program, Sunday feast. As we know, we are not in the position to open the temple up for guests for a Sunday program. We have a limit of maximum 15 people. So we've decided to continue doing the classes online and just invite people to put in any questions that they like at the end of the class or even during the class so we can answer them. We're going to continue like this for the near future anyway. We haven't seen any changes, and in fact there's probably more risk of the thing getting more restricted, but at the moment the temple is open so people can come anytime, from about 12 anytime between 12 and about 7 or 8, and when the rest that you can get darshan at that time. But we've been restricting the actual programs, but anyway, we'll try our best to stay online. So I'd like to read today from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Normally we read from Bhagavad Gita, but this particular section in the Bhagavatam is particularly good and has a lot of very interesting aspects to it. So I'm going to read out, it's from the 5th canto, chapter 8, text number 11. And I'll just say the invocation at the start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'm going to do something a little unusual, but I'm still staying within the realms of reason. The verse I'm going to speak on is Canto 5, Chapter 18, text number 11. But I'm going to read the next verse is a very famous verse. So I wanted to actually read that verse as well, and I thought I'd do the Sanskrit of this verse because it's one that it would be nice if people got to learn off by heart, which is it's 5, 18, 12. So I'll read it out and then I'll go back on to number 11. It's just such a beautiful verse and it has so much wonderful meaning to it. But I wanted to stick with the one before it because Prabhupada's purport, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the Hare Krishna movement, he wrote these wonderful purports or explanations of some of the verses, and I just thought I wanted to stick with that because it's very relevant. So text number 12. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavata kinchana sarvair gunush tatra samasite sura harava bhaktasya kato mahadguna manoratana satitavato bahi. I've been in the Krishna consciousness movement for getting close to 40 years, and I still haven't learned that verse off by heart, but I've read it, I'd say, about 100 times. So if any great scholar there is listening, wants to learn verses, this would be a very important one to learn because Prabhupada uses it a lot. So I'll just read the Sanskrit translation. Yasya, of whom, asti, there is, bhakti, devotional service, Bhagavati, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Akinchana, without any motive, Sarvai, with all, Gunai, good qualities, Tatra, there, in that person, Samasate, reside, Sura, all the demigods, Haro, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Abhaktasya, of a person who is not devoted, Kuta, where, Mahatguna, good qualities, Manoratena, by mental speculation, asati,
asati,
in the temporary material world,
in the temporary material world,
davata,
Davata,
who is running,
who is running,
bahi,
Bahi,
outside.
outside.
And so the translation of that verse is, all the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualification, no good qualities. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? So, very interesting verse. Verse before it, text 11. By associating with persons for whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead Mukunda is the all in all, one can hear of his powerful activities and soon come to understand them. The activities of Mukunda are so potent that simply by hearing of them, one immediately associates with the Lord. For a person who constantly and very eagerly hears narrations of the Lord's powerful activities, the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, in the form of sound vibrations, enters within his heart and cleanses it of all contamination. On the other hand, although bathing in the Ganga diminishes bodily contaminations and infections, this process and the process of visiting holy places can cleanse the heart only after a long time. Therefore, who is the sane man who will not associate with devotees to quickly perfect his life? Amadhyana timirandasya jana jana shalakaya chakshuran militam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Vishnu Badai Krishna Vastai Badai Goswami Yadinamanidam Namo Vishnu Badai Krishna Vastai Badai Shimari Bhaktivedanta Swami Dinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bhajarine Nirvashesha Sunnivadi Pastata Deshatarine. So the second verse, which I read first, talks about associating with somebody who has all the good qualities of the demigods. And the verse before it explains about the potency of such a person. Such a person is full of... the main thing is that the person is beyond the modes of nature. Now you might ask, what is the modes of nature? The modes of nature are three different energies which are affecting the soul's sojourn here in the material world. In fact, the whole material world is controlled by these modes of nature. They're like, you might consider them as the bars of a prison. They're called goodness, passion, and ignorance. And the soul is stuck here in this material world and is trying to understand itself, but it becomes illusioned as to its real nature in the material world, and thereby is thrown about by these different modes of nature. It's like it's like tossed around in a stormy sea, and there's practically no refuge here. The refuge that one tries to get here is like trying to grasp. One example is trying to grasp a dog's tail by trying to cross the ocean. You know these little woof 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 little dogs. Trying to cross an ocean, grabbing his tail, you probably drown the dog quicker. Anyway, but that's the kind of example that we've got here. We're trying to experience permanence, which is the nature of the soul. We're trying to experience permanence here, but we're in the middle of an ocean and we're being tossed around from one place to another, to another, to another, to another. And there's no oasis around, or there's nothing to get hold of. so that is the unfortunate position of the soul. The soul is permanent by nature, but is trying to find permanence in an impermanent place. So we, as the soul, we're trying to get some knowledge as to our real nature. And there's no point in going maybe to the grocery store and asking him about how to go back to the spiritual world, because the grocer basically wants to sell you some groceries. Or even if you go to a diamond store, they'll try to sell you some jewelry. So we have to go to somebody who's qualified, basically, in this science. And this is how Supreme Lord actually acts. He divvies out this power of attorney to various personalities throughout the world, throughout history, and gives them the potency to act as a kind of a touchstone. They say it's an ancient stone, but to act as a stone which can immediately affect a person who is covered by what I said earlier, as these modes, these prison bars, so as to decontaminate him from the material conditioning. So these people need to be quite qualified, but they're qualified by the energy of the Supreme. Because there's ultimately three energies. There's the superior energy, there's the inferior energy, and there's the marginal energy. The superior energy is eternal, ever existing, full of knowledge, full of bliss. The material energy is matter, like this piano here I'm knocking, I'm sure you can hear it, is made of matter. It's not going to talk back to me, or it's not going to ask me if it have something to eat. It's actually inert, and it doesn't have the soul in it. Then there's more inert matter, is this bone and flesh and blood and urine and various other items, unmentionables, and that's not actually us. That is also matter. But we are the third energy, which is the marginal energy, which we're part of the Supreme, but we're inhabiting the material world. Now, this is also the prison house. The body is like the prison house, because the body is the product of our previous activities, or in other words, our karma. How we've acted previously has dictated to what this body is, like this nose, these eyes, ears, tongue, mouth, skin, chin, whatever. They're all dictated to. Almost, you cannot change it by the laws of nature. Whoever you are, who's listening here, your particular body has been brought to you by the modes of nature and by your previous activities, and it is made up of how you've acted previously, and also what you desire now. So this is a mixture that each of us are inhabiting. So we all have a material body, and we're kind of trapped or stuck in that material body, and we're trying to find out who we actually are in that body. I'd like to go into one section now and explain about how the scientific community, not all of them, but basically in general, they try to explain who we are in relation to matter, or something like a Big Bang theory, or in relation to it all happened by chance, and they talk about Darwinian evolution and so on. That, of course, is absolute. It's quite unintelligent. Srila Prabhupada would call this very unintelligent, and people who follow that kind of thinking are unintelligent. Whereas the scripture, all the scriptures of the world, are full of explanations by the supreme cause of everything, of what this world is made of and what it's meant to do. In other words, the supreme scientist is giving us information on the nature of this reality, not these kind of bit scientists who take birth here for 70 years, 80 years, whatever. and try to make a sense of it through the wrong instrumentation, basically. They cannot see through the eyes of Shastra, they can't see through the eyes of the soul. In fact, they basically dismiss any evidence from Shastra or evidence that starts with a superior cause. They prefer to have something by chance, which is totally ridiculous, because everything is happening by cause and effect. Their whole science is based on it, but yet they're saying things happen by chance, which is the ultimate, how do you call it? The ultimate hypocrisy, you could say. Everything they're doing, their whole degrees, I'm not just having a go here, but I'm just saying a reality. They're all writing these papers so they can get more money and they can get more prestige and more fame as great scientists, and they work hard and all of these things. And, we're meant to accept this is the reality. And, they're by dint of their own behavior, even moral scientists, their behavior, moral philosophical scientists, their behavior leaves so much to be desired. I had my personal experience of that in Trinity College. Ethics professor was just cavorting with all the females in the place and drinking back his wine and just speaking as though he was God Almighty, but he looked like a fool to me. And this is an ethics professor. But again, I'm not here to make any aspirations to the academic fraternity. There's some wonderful academics. I was in university myself for several years and came across some very wonderful people. But at the same time, that doesn't mean to say that I cannot see what I actually see, which is contradictory in the extreme. So the information that is given to us about the soul is coming from the Shastra. So that's the information that we take, and that's that is the logic of the Supreme actually displaying himself to us, because he's not easily seen. He doesn't make himself so easily available. Instead, he says, if you want to stay here in the material world and enjoy through the three modes of nature, go ahead and try and see how you get on. And unfortunately, in the three modes of nature, they throw out things like lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, envy. These type of things are companions. So in that sense, it's more like a forest of illusion rather than the beautiful material world. There's so much illusion that goes on that we can very easily be sidetracked into so-called enjoyment. And that's what I want to get back to again. We're struggling in this ocean of material suffering, and we're trying to take refuge of a dog's tail or something, Spiritual life is about taking refuge of the instructions in the Shastra, so that we can get to understand our real nature, and therefore we can take shelter in the boat of transcendental knowledge, hear the favourable breezes of the Shastra, and then go to the actual other side, which is the spiritual world, where we will actually attain our life of eternality, bliss and knowledge, and actually understand things as they are. We can get glimpses of that in this life. Not only glimpses, we can get actual clear vision of that in this life. That's why I'm making these bold statements, because time is short, it's very, very short. Unless we concentrate, unless we focus on spiritual life, we will be actually driven away by the time and tide wait for no man, and we will just be constantly in the ocean of material suffering, sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a living being, sometimes as an ant, an insect, a virus. We take different bodies according to the nature, the way nature has been developed so expertly by God. And so the living entity needs to know how to live properly in the world here, and then create the great escape to go back to the spiritual world. And actually, Jivan Mukta Uchite, we can be self-realized even within this world. So what I want to get into, what are the symptoms of that? So here we are. By associating with these persons, they're described as, for whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the all in all, one can hear the powerful activities and soon come to understand them. The activities of Mukunda are so potent that simply by hearing them, one immediately associates with the Lord. So by hearing these activities, one associates, because the spiritual world descends to the material world, and through the sound vibration we can get some understanding. Our heart will resonate with the sound vibration, and therefore the heart, that's where the soul is residence. We have the mind, we have the actual heart, we have the mind, which is also the emotional heart, but we have the spiritual heart as well, but that's where it resides. And that spiritual heart resonates with spiritual sound vibration. Previously, the sound vibration were much more advanced. Nowadays, it's quite mundane in the sense that, I could probably rephrase that. We are mundane, so we cannot hear the very subtle science of sound vibration that was in previous eras, like when all the Vedic scriptures or the sounds were so subtle that they were and so powerful that it was sufficient to people could actually invoke huge energies through this sound vibration, through the medium of sound. But now the sound that we want to hear is the spiritual sound, and that sound is the powerful sound which will resonate with the spiritual heart and bring the soul back as powerful, to bring the back all the way to the spiritual world, way beyond the dimension of this multifaceted universe. Says, millions and millions of universes, but the spiritual sound is sufficient to bring us out of this whole matrix, and bring us to the spiritual world, which is beyond all of this. Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, I'm going to read it here a little bit. Bathing in the Ganga can certainly cure one of many infectious diseases, but it cannot cleanse one's materially attached mind, which creates all kinds of contaminations in material existence. However, one who directly associates with the Supreme Lord by hearing of his activities cleanses the dirt from his mind, and very soon comes to Krishna consciousness. Sutta Goswami confirms this in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.17. Shrinvata svakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana trijanta stohya bhadrani vidhunoti saritsatam. The Supreme Lord within everyone's heart becomes very pleased when a person hears narrations of his activities, and he personally cleanses the dirt from the mind of the listener. Trijanta stohya bhadrani vidhunoti. He washes all the dirt from the mind. Material existence is caused by dirty things within the mind. If one can cleanse his mind, he immediately comes to his original position of Krishna consciousness, and thus his life becomes successful. So there you go. You don't have to do millions of yoga positions for many lifetimes, even one lifetime. I know I had a lot of difficulty, although doing yoga actually helped me to bring me to Krishna consciousness. But some of those movements I just couldn't get, unfortunately. But by hearing sound vibration, the soul is liberated. Even somebody like me, who's very unqualified, can actually start to hear the sound from the spiritual domain. So it's a very powerful thing. So this is why Krishna appears. What's the verse? Paritranaya sadhanam vanishaya chaduskritam sambhavama yuge yuge paritranaya. Yeah. Whenever there's this decline in religious principles, at that time I descend myself and to deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreant. So Krishna actually appears from the spiritual dimension, so that those of us who are caught up in the material dimension can get some association with some person in the spiritual dimension. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, I can't remember the verse at the moment, I'm sure it will come to me though. But he basically says, one who understands the nature of my appearance and activities at once transcends the modes of nature and goes to my kingdom, goes back to the spiritual world. So we have so many examples of so-called great heroes in the world. Actually, I was just at our local creche, and they're trying to get the kids to wash hands, keep social distancing, and we can beat this virus, And they have the pictures drawn on the wall of these two superheroes, and so we're all in this together and we can all do this. It's a nice sentiment for the kids. So we're always thinking of these superheroes who are going to do this and do that. But the superheroes are in reality the spiritual guides, or the saints, Krishna himself. Krishna himself appears in this world in all his regalia for us so that we can understand him or we learn about him. We could miss him. If we have material eyes, we're not going to see him. Prananjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena, famous verse from the Brahma Samhita. One whose eyes are trained with the pulp of love can actually see God in this world. If we don't have the eyes trained like that, we won't be able to see God. So what do we do to develop this love? This is what we do. We hear about God. We hear about his pastimes. We hear about what he did when he's here. And we also hear about what it's like in the spiritual world. So I would use the word hear there 4 times. We don't engage the speculative mind. The idea is that we hear submissively. That's a big, tall order for most people, because we think that if we don't engage our minds, somebody's going to take advantage of us. Oh, this person is going to do this to me and do that to me. I have to protect myself. So this kind of fearing mentality, which is an animalistic mentality, as we know, is there to try to, in one sense, it's useful in the material world to protect one. But in the higher realms, the mind is actually becomes satisfied, more so, when it can submissively hear about the pastimes of the Supreme World, the Supreme Lord. And when we hear about the Supreme Lord, he is the superhero. I mean, we have, as I said, we have some indication of superheroes in this world. We try to make them the Spider-Man or the Batman or Superman or Superwoman. We kind of create them in our mind. So you can see there's some tendency there to or we have these movie stars who are the most recent heroes. It's sorry for being a bit cynical, but it just is. They. It depends how much intoxication they've taken to see how super they are. It's quite incredible. The intoxication gets the person out of themselves into a better version of themselves, so called. But the intoxication has a disastrous effect, both on the person and whoever listens to the person on intoxication. So, at some point in my life, I was able to at least drop that side of me, that side that was looking for intoxication, for relief rather than happiness, I would say. Initially it was so-called happiness, but then it became relief. But now it's neither, thankfully, by Krishna's grace. May it always continue. And now it is the spiritual sound vibration and spiritual histories, spiritual stories. And that's the reason I took this verse, because that's where we want to try to go. I mean, I'm just talking as a Joe Bloggs from Dublin who heard about this message and put it into practice so many years ago, and I'm seeing how it works. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's not an easy process. It's simultaneously easy and sublime, but it's simple, shall we say? It's not a difficult process, but it's not so easy. And the reason it's not easy is because we're so used to being here in the material realm. And so, as I said, many years ago, I was able to give up one sort of intoxication by experiencing a higher taste. Because I actually got the association of spiritual, saintly persons, and they showed me that there is a realm beyond just the material sphere. By their activities and by their behavior, and by their essence, because they were on the platform of the soul, I could actually see it, tangibly see it, and then I wasn't blind because I was a student for 3 years in philosophy, English, French, so I was used to studying to hear. What is correct, what is not, what is truth, what is not. I spent 3 years doing it. And even in my spare time, I spent time studying religion to do it. But then I heard this sound vibration and I was convinced. because it very clearly demonstrated, and that's what I have seen in my life. It demonstrates this purifying process, or as explained here, God within. So as I was saying, the soul is located in the heart, but also God is located there as well, the super soul. And he cleanses the heart of the desire for material enjoyment from the person who has developed the urge to hear these messages. God does that for us. We can't do it. As great as we think we are, as great as we think our solutions are, we can't do it. We just can't do it. Even when we're trying to chant, I would assume quite a few people listening here would actually chant. Even when we're chanting, our mind is wandering into everything else under the sun. But in fact, our mind should be focused on the sound of the Maha Mantra. It should be focused on that sound, and we should be hearing the Maha Mantra, not hearing our mind dwelling on everything else under the sun. About he said that, and she said this, and if they act in that way, then I'm going to do this, and if they think they're going to get away with that, then I'm going to do this instead. Instead of listening and hearing the sound vibration of God's names, we hear all this type of stuff. But that hearing, for me, was made much stronger by studying Shastra and referring to Shastra in our everyday life. Like, so many things can absorb us in this life. We have the jobs, previously we joined a temple, spent time, we had more time. But even in a temple it was busy and there wasn't that much time as well. But our life is taken up by occupation, about gossip, about they call it Gramya or talk of the village. And even as destructive, you've got the one devotee I heard talk about the quagmire of what's that? Theories. What theories are they, Johnny? Conspiracy theories, yeah. The quagmire of conspiracy theories. My God, like, I'm getting them on my phone all the time, and some of them some of them are reasonable, but not. I'm not making any judgment about them. But if we spend our time in conspiracy theories, we won't spend our time on what's going to clear our heart and going back to the spiritual world. And we'll come back in this world as a conspiracy, a little conspiracy theorist. Because that's the only thing we can get here. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be aware of what's going on in the world around us to whatever degree we can easily understand that. Go ahead, yeah, that's fine. But if we spend our time just dwelling on that stuff, we're never going to find out. We never know. The tiny brain can't understand it. It's a complete illusion, but made by God's inferior energy, the Maya Shakti, So we're not going to really going to really get it, nor is any other demonic mentality going to get it. As much as they'll try to use it here to, exploit somebody else. Obviously, we don't want to be exploited, but the ultimate way of not being exploited is actually to rise above it, to stay on the spiritual platform. Because in spiritual life, it's a whole series of development. We start off with a little faith. We start to practice. We start to associate with spiritual persons. That's like I said at the start. I came in touch with these very spiritually minded people, spiritually. Very, very attractive personalities. And then I started practice some regulations because that's what they were doing. In other words, the regulations were to avoid the 4 sinful activities: no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, and no intoxication. And also to chant, very positive, chant the Maha Mantra, the powerful mantra of deliverance for a certain amount of time every day. So once I started doing that, I felt completely motorized, batteryized. I never felt that way ever in my life before, and so I've been putting the same battery in every day for the last, nearly 40 years now, and there is an actual very clear. The way in judo you have the different belts, the yellow belt, the green belt, the brown belt, the this belt, the whatever belt, black belt, and it's this first dan, second, So spiritual life is the same. It has those things. You can actually verify where you're at. You can see where you're going in this whole thing. You know, you don't need a big, you know, crystal ball to check out where you are. It's very clear. And where we need to get to, and this is why I wanted to talk about this verse today, we need to get this cleaning in the heart. It's called an art and naivety. God does it for us. He actually does it. Now, we have to make a big effort ourselves, but if we hear about God, God is actually doing this for us because he's our best friend. He's our best friend, you know. There's no other best friend. As much as we do have good friends and great friends even, but our best friend is God. And ultimately, when we're on the last journey in this body, that's who we're going to turn to. You know, spiritual master, or, you know, God or his representative spiritual master, spiritual guide, whatever. So that's where we want to the best friend doing this for us is actually helping us within. He's the only person who can help us. Do we not try to help other people? Say yes. I think we do. We try to help people as best we can. But can we help other people? Generally, no. Definitely the guy that I meet outside our restaurant every day, who's always looking for some money, he doesn't think I'm helping him because I don't give him money. You know, might have given him once or something like that, but I don't. You know, but he doesn't think I'm his best friend. If I kept on giving him money, he'd probably think I would be a pretty good friend, all right. But God actually does this. You know, He's doing this for us. You know, we have our partners, our children. These are all great help, great friends. But ultimately, God is acting through them. It's through God's greatness that they are these great friends, great spouses, great children, you know, whatever. The great friends. This friendship is all sourced in God. And we had a celebration of Srimati Radharani a few days ago. So even in God's female aspect, Radha, this great compassion is there for us. And that's coming from God as well. And God wants us to actually to go back to the spiritual world. But just to get back onto this stage of anartha nivritti, God is cleansing within our hearts. But even from the start, as I mentioned, we have this taste. It's called ruchi. And God gives us this taste for spiritual life. Because if we didn't have taste, we'd have to try to, we're forced to have taste, and we'd have to try to taste this intoxication, which I told you earlier about. You know, you have to get some taste in life. And it just depends where you get that taste. So we're having these classes, we're trying to set up societies, movements, so that people will go to the spiritual, to go for taste to the spiritual dimension. Anybody who is practicing spiritual life for a while, who is indebted to the persons that they got the spiritual life from. And therefore, they will, the price or how they absolve themselves of that debt is to give other persons that opportunity as well to experience what they experience. That is what this whole compassion is about. And even if we don't feel it, if we serve somebody who set up something like that, like the spiritual guide or spiritual master, then we will actually get that compassion as well eventually. And in the early stages of bhakti, we may not actually even experience the taste I'm talking about. But through regulation and through putting into practice the instructions given by the spiritual guides, we will start to perform these activities automatically, and then the taste will come. The taste for hearing, sometimes people find difficult reading. But that taste is there, but we have to try to put it into practice. The example is given that I'm not from India myself, so I don't know this, but I'm told this, that in Ayurveda, in the Ayurveda, that the cure for jaundice is sugar candy, a sweet candy. But when you take it, when you have jaundice, it tastes bitter. So initially, the spiritual activities may be difficult, a little difficult at the beginning, but we have to persist and push through. And when we do that, then we will actually experience the sweet taste of sugar candy. And that's the sign that you're getting better from the jaundice as well. You start to regain the original taste of the sugar candy. So in our lifetimes as well, we have to have faith in the instruction of the spiritual master, but we will get faith, we'll also get empowerment from the spiritual master to do this, to perform activities which initially may seem a little difficult. Some of it is difficult, some of it's not. But we may have that little difficulty initially. But whatever happened or whatever came to anybody who didn't have to perform some austerity in this world. I mean, anybody who's a student or who's got a degree or whatever, they had to perform so much austerity to get that. Not go out at night times, not stay and study, then do all the examinations and then wait for the results. It's austerity. It's austere. And then they get a job and they have lots of income, and then they have to work very hard, and then the little things that they get maybe a bigger house, a better car, a nicer neighborhood. But the price you have to pay for all of those things is quite high. Is very high. So spiritual life tries to cut through all of that and give you the ability to get taste, but it requires you to perform some austerity as well, and that will give you the energy and the knowledge to actually make the progress that's needed to experience this taste I'm talking about. But when we do experience this taste, then we won't want to taste anything else, which is amazing. We have glimpses of it here. I have a reading class a couple of times a week, and we read some of the scriptures together, and then we discuss some things at the end. But there's a real taste at the end, and people we kind of have to. Okay, I got to go now. We can't talk any longer, because you're discussing those spiritual topics among friends. Then you actually get this taste. The taste actually is there, and you don't want to leave it. You can do it on your own as well, but always best to try to do it in a group if possible, which is difficult during COVID. There's only 6 different people can meet together. Anyway, I won't get into that. But discussion is important as well. When we discuss, then we start to hear. And it's very important to hear. It's very important to listen, because you know what I mean? It's very important to hear, because generally we only hear ourselves, and when somebody's speaking, we're only hearing what we want to say next. It's a kind of a disease that's there, because it's the mind only is hearing itself, and but the advantage of hearing other people and leaving the mind alone, it's huge, because you learn so much. You learn so much about other people. You learn so much about what people are thinking. And that actual hearing that you do that way, when you're listening to qualified people, they actually have a strange experience then as well, because they actually, oh boy, somebody's actually listening to me. And then they can speak openly and freely, and their actual soul starts to speak. And that's an incredible experience. And so the hearing others, and then when we start to speak and the other person's hearing us, because it's the same kind of thing that's there. It is just ever increasing, which is what the spiritual world is all about. And the ecstasy gets better and better and better. And it is a spiritual ecstasy. It's not a material so-called ecstasy. So that's why I wanted to speak on this verse. And I just want to finish off some other little parts about it as well. And this talks about the great saints. Therefore, all the great saints in the devotional line very strongly recommend the process of hearing. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra to give everyone a chance to hear Krishna's holy name. For simply by hearing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, one becomes purified, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Therefore, our Krishna consciousness movement is chiefly engaged in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra all over the world. So that's why we do this chanting in O'Connell Street now, Grafton Street sometimes, Temple Bar, whatever. It's we feel the ecstasy ourselves. We actually get onto the spiritual platform. Somehow or other, Krishna is very, very merciful and allows us to call out his name, and then he appears, and then we become satisfied with his appearance, and then we call out his names even louder, or even more delicately, more subtly, like both the strong kirtans and the mellow kirtans. Both are wonderful, and then anybody else who hears them is benefited. So Krishna is very pleased that we spread the holy name that way, because we're spreading good fortune everywhere. Then we'll also get the taste more, because Krishna is he's alert. He sees what we're doing, he sees what we want to do, and he says, this person wants to spread my glories, I'll give him some of my glories. So he gives us that taste that I mentioned about earlier. It gives us the taste of the holy name, of how important the holy name is. One example that Srila Satyanandan Maharaj gives is of this, I think it's the Sri Rangam temple in South India, and there's 3 different gates. The first gate is the gate of the body, the bodily gate. You're in the chanting, you're supposed to sit straight and sit in a proper way, because then you'll attract the right energy towards your chanting. Then the mind, and that's the next gate. The next gate is you're trying to focus on the mind and just hearing the holy name. You're trying to hear the holy name with great attention, great depth. You're just trying to hear Krishna's name, and it's a powerful, powerful effect. But to get into the last gate and to see the Lord, to see Krishna, then Krishna has to open that gate. There's nothing we can do for it. Krishna just sees, or he's merciful, or he opens that gate for us, so that we can actually experience the bliss of the holy name. But we have to still get through the other 2 gates, controlling the mind, controlling the body. And we can also pray. We can pray to Krishna earnestly, please help me, please help me, please help me, please help me. Only you can help me. So this prayer is very, very important. The prayer to Krishna. And Krishna hears it, he's like, we're like his kids, He actually hears it, but he knows when we're really crying, or if we want something, or what we're looking for. If we're just looking for some material thing, he's not going to hear us. He's just, the material energy can deal with that. He's not interested. But if he hears that we desperately want to leave this material world and desperately want to experience him in the spiritual world, then he will come. Then he'll open that last gate. So we have to be ready. So that's why we chant on the order of the spiritual master, to spread the good fortune and to experience the good fortune. After one's mind becomes cleansed by chanting Hare Krishna, one gradually comes to the platform of Krishna consciousness, and then reads books like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the Nectar of Devotion. In this way, one becomes more and more purified of material contamination. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.18, Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regularly hearing the Bhagavatam and rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is practically destroyed, and loving service, bhakti, loving service to the supreme, unto the glorious Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So then, for the rest of our day then, if we're hearing, we'll be serving, because we'll be thinking of Krishna, even doing our daily activities, our daily chores. We'll be doing the daily chores, but we'll be looking forward to time where we can replenish our heart with spiritual sound vibration from Krishna and from Srila Prabhupada. It will give us that great feeling of happiness, of satisfaction, bliss, if we're very fortunate. We'll experience these things in reality, and we will yearn for them. Our prayers will be strongly looking, please engage me in your service. Please let me come back to you. I don't want to be here anymore, but I want to serve you forever. So that service is there, and you're not looking for anything. You just want to serve Krishna because that's our natural position. That's the loving position that we have in the spiritual dimension. And I haven't even started to talk about the spiritual dimension. Can you imagine? The spiritual dimension is there. It's as followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are dasa dasa nu dasa. We're servant of the servant of the servant of the the gopis in Vrindavan, you could say, of the servant of the millions of times removed. But that's where we want to be. We want to be in the spiritual world. In the material, or even in the spiritual world, we can worship God as all highest, as the holiest, as Narayan, as all the other names of God. You can worship God. But we want to go to Goloka Vrindavan. We want to go where we don't even know that it's God, but we're just energized by this loving feeling for God. We're not even thinking that it's God. And our idea is that we become the servants of the servants of Krishna in the spiritual world, and that is the position of the bhakti yogi. That's the position of the bhakti yogi. So, from the very depths of, I'm going to say where I'm from here, for the very depths of Drumcondra, all the way to the spiritual world, which is multi, dimensions beyond Drumcondra. It is possible, and this is what is given in this bhakti yoga. In this way, simply by hearing the powerful activities of the Lord, the devotee's heart becomes almost completely cleansed of material contamination, and thus his original position as an eternal servant who is part and parcel of the Lord becomes manifest. While the devotee engages in devotional service, and this is really important, the passionate and ignorant modes of material nature are gradually vanquished, and then he acts only in the mode of goodness. At that time, he becomes happy and gradually advances in Krishna consciousness. So I was explaining about the prison house earlier on, but just by hearing, just by the activity of hearing, it's melted. The false ego is melted. The false sense of proprietorship is melted. All of these different intermediary activities are melted simply by the process of submissive hearing and service. It's a simple message. It's so simple that you miss it. It's so simple that you miss it. You just have to be alert to the opportunities and be here now. Don't be dreaming about the future or lamenting about the past. Be here now in the Maha Mantra, in the chanting. That's the advice from Satyanandan Swami. And this is the advice that Srila Prabhupada is giving, is that this Maha Mantra is the most powerful method to be here now and to experience this blissful activity. And finally, all the great acharyas strongly recommend that people be given a chance to hear about the Supreme Lord. Then the success is assured. The more we cleanse the dirt of material enjoyment of attachment from our hearts, the more we will be attracted to Krishna's name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and activities. This is the sum and substance of the Krishna consciousness movement. So there you have it. That's our activity today. We're here. We're trying to present the sound vibration. I'm repeating what is in the Shastra. I'm not adding anything from myself. Just, giving from my experience point of view as a Joe Bloggs living entity in this world. And but still, it's a testimony. That's what all these great big companies they use testimonies from various people. Well, this is my testimony. I hope you find it as useful. So I'll stop here. I don't know if there's any questions. I can take any questions now. Pardon?
There's buffering. It's buffering.
Much?
It's just started.
Okay.
I was back.
Okay.
I don't know how long that was going on for.
That's what all these great big companies use. They use testimonies from various people.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. and look forward to seeing you again soon. Don't forget, you can tune in every morning, generally in Dublin Krishna Temple or Krishna Island. This is on Facebook or on YouTube, and then just try to follow as much as you can. Purchase copies of Bhagavad Gita. This is Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which I'm reading from, and read every day. Don't not read every day. Just you eat every day, isn't it? Well, this is spiritual eating. You have to do it. You will be weak if you don't, but if you do, you will be strong. So eat every day, read every day, chant every day, and be happy.